I greet you with universal greetings of peace. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. This is Adeeb Shabazz, and I thank you for tuning into this video. Many people have been requesting me to do a video. People have heard me on radio and have read my books, and some people have seen me actually speak in person, but not enough people. So those people have been asking me to do videos, and here we are, choosing a very special topic: Hitler, Al-Qaeda, American slavery, and the law of attraction. Many people are asking themselves right now, I'm sure, what type of topic is that? How does all that fit together? And there's a reason why. In a short video, we're not able to go into great detail about the subjects of Hitler and Nazi Germany, or Al-Qaeda and its origins, or American slavery, which is a subject that could take up libraries and volumes of information and hours and hours and hours of video in order to discuss. But there is one common thread, and that is law of attraction. And people really don't see that. People don't see the connection between the law of attraction and what's going on in their lives. And it's hard to really focus when we really see that things appear to be happening to us and we don't appear to be making them happen, especially not on an individual basis. People have explained away how things happen and why evil things happen or bad things happen to good people. People explain that God allows evil, be they Muslims or Christians or Hindus or Jews. God allows evil. The Muslims and the Christians especially have blamed the devil, this entity, Shaitan, Iblis, the devil, Satan, who is allowed to operate and function and tempt people into evil and draw people into evil activity. There's been that type of explanation. Those explanations are very juvenile, and I don't mean to offend any Muslims or any Christians or anybody of any particular faith. However, I do need to challenge you to raise your level of personal responsibility and your level of understanding, to understand that an entity outside of yourself that is blamed for actions that happen in the world is really not a mature understanding, and I hope to bring you to a more mature understanding of what happens in the world and why, if you would allow me to. Either individually or collectively, we work with the law of attraction. It is a law. It is not a good law. It is not a bad law. It is a law. And whether you use it for good or bad, or what you perceive to be good or bad, is what is important. That is what is important. For example, I'm going to take a law that we're all familiar with, the law of gravity. The law of gravity works whether we want it to or not, whether we're aware of it or not. When we came here into this world, it was working. When we leave, it will be working. And it is a law. We accept that. We understand that when we got out of bed this morning, if we were to just to roll off the bed, assuming that you have an elevated bed, if you roll off the bed, you'll hit the floor with a thud. Boom. And, that won't be too pleasant. So most of us have learned that we need to take our feet out of bed and place 1 foot or 2 feet on the floor eventually and lift ourselves up and walk. And that makes it a whole lot easier and a whole lot more pleasant than actually just rolling out the bed and hitting the floor with a thud. We understand that law of gravity will pull us down toward the center of the earth, and that if we want to avoid hitting the floor beneath us or the ground beneath us, we need to cooperate with law of gravity. We understand that the law of gravity will work for us because it's very pleasant that when we put 1 foot in front of the other, we can rest assured that on that floor or ground below us, our feet will rest firmly and we won't float off into space somewhere. That works well. We understand that if we want to leave the floor or the ground beneath us, that we need to use some type of propulsion. such as our muscles, lifting our feet up and placing them on the ground, using a mechanical device such as a lift or a plane that has thrust, or something to lift ourselves off of the ground if we want to leave the ground. We understand that that's how it works. And if we just decide that we're going to walk off a cliff, we'll plummet down to solid ground beneath us, however far that ground is below us, and it may not be pleasant when we meet that ground if it's too far down. We understand these things. We understand that the law works. And I'm going into that in such detail because I want you to understand that the law of attraction is just the same. It is not a good law. It is not an evil law. It is a law, period. It operates, it functions, and this is how it works. It's plain and simple. The law of attraction works whereas we put our attention on a particular thing or a particular idea, a particular subject. That thing, that idea, that subject grows in our lives and grows stronger in our lives. It creates a magnetic pull. We focus our attention with passion and it grows in our lives. It creates a magnetic pull to bring those things as well as circumstances and situations that support the things and ideas that we're focusing on into our lives. And what we take our attention away from and our passion away from dissipates. It disappears. It grows smaller. And it will disappear from our lives. We are living our lives, most of us, very unconsciously. We're not really living a conscious life, so we don't recognize that we're putting our passions, not what we want, but our passions in the wrong perspective. We don't realize where we're putting our passions at. Most of us live a life that has us putting our passions in areas that we don't want, and thus we receive a lot of what we don't want. And a lot of us are not even doing it of our own free will and volition. We have given our free will and our volition over to people who manipulate us knowingly. Some knowingly, some unknowingly. There are unknowing factors and there are knowing factors that manipulate our thinking. For one, the media has been used in our lifetime to manipulate our thinking and to have us think certain things. We need to live in fear. We need to live in lack and in fear of lack. And we believe these things. And we need to retaliate. We need to get them before they get us. We believe these things, the majority of us. When I say we, I mean the majority of us. May not be you directly, but the majority of us do believe that. Get them before they get us. I got to get mine, you got to get yours. There's not enough to go around the world. You got to struggle to survive. You got to fight to survive. We have believed these things for quite a while. Before the media existed in the way that it does, now it's internet and we still listen to some radio and television. Before that, the newspaper was big. Newspapers have died down and almost out by now. But before that, the news was brought to us by town criers. We went to church and the church supplied a lot of our news. The mosque in Islamic places or whatever temple in the culture that we came from supplied our thinking, and our thinking was shaped by those who were in rulership or leadership over us. And those who are in leadership oftentimes want to keep us subjugated vis-a-vis them, so that we have to rely on this leadership. And the haves can remain the haves and the have-nots can remain the have-nots. So fear, which already existed in a fight or flight life for us, has been grown organically through a process that started out with breeding fear in the religious institutions, to breeding fear in governments, to breeding fear in media, to the current day, modern day worldwide media and internet and the World Wide Web, truly breeding fear. We live in a society where we are looking at war on terror, war on drugs, um, war on crime, and we expect through all these wars to obtain peace. And we're not realizing that regardless of war on terror, war on crime, war on drugs is going to do nothing but put more attention on drugs and crime and terror. And it's going to grow more drugs, crime, and terror. Briefly, Al-Qaeda, for example, was born out of the anti-communist movement. And we here in America funded a group called the Mujahideen in Afghanistan when the Soviet Union was fighting Afghanistan, for example. That created a situation where through funding this group, a group by the name of Al-Qaeda was secretly formed, and the CIA actually was funding this inadvertently. Some say directly, but at least inadvertently, the CIA ended up funding Al-Qaeda. And the American people were behind it. So let's not get into conspiracy theories, because the American people knew that we were involved in anti-communist activities, but we, by our fear, a whole country, by our fear, actually grew an enemy for us. So we got rid of communism. The Soviet Union fell, and Afghanistan is not communist anymore. But yet we still have an enemy, because now we grew an enemy of Islamic terrorism. And now we focus on that, and we're making that grow stronger in our lives. The same situation occurred in a different way, but basically the principles were the same when dealing with Nazi Germany and Hitler. Created an enemy in the German people who were humiliated in a loss in World War I. We're not going to talk about whether they were justified or not. There was a wave of anti-Semitism because this rumor or this belief that the Jews killed Jesus was rampant all throughout Europe. Britain, Germany, France, the Allies, the Axis powers, didn't matter. Europe was full of anti-Jewish sentiment, and that's why Nazi Germany was allowed to grow the way it did. By the time they got a hold of it and said, wait, this is going to be a problem, it was too late. American slavery was a combination of European aggression and disunity and distrust and fear amongst African nations and tribes. And it created a situation where, unfortunately, not only 6 million Jews dying, we're talking about hundreds of millions of Africans dying in the Middle Passage in slavery and the slave trade. Unfortunate situations that were bred out of fear. We have to learn to focus on what we want and not what we don't want. We have to focus our energies and our attention on love and not hate. We have to understand that this is an abundant universe and that we don't need to focus on lack and I'll get mine before you get yours, because there's enough for anybody and everybody. We have to understand these things and foster these thoughts in our mind, and it will help us grow. No matter how many of us do it, there will be an abundance, and we have to understand that. There's not enough time in this video to actually explain how this is done, but however, if you will tune and stay tuned into godblog.freedompathradio.com, that is godblog.freedompathradio.com, the link should be below here, and that will keep you updated with what we'll be bringing forth, what I will be writing. There'll be an ebook coming out, and there will be deeper explanations on this topic. I thank you very much for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you have questions, please do address them to me. I thank you so much for your time, and I greet you and leave you in those greeting words of peace. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. Thank you so much.